Millionaire Matthew Reynolds offers shelter to black homeless woman during storm and shocks Donald Trump. The streets of New York were drowning in rain. Thunder cracked like gunshots, lightning ripping the sky in wild, jagged lines. In the chaos, something nobody expected happened. A story swirling through the city like wildfire. Matthew Reynolds, the billionaire tech mogul known for private jets and penthouse parties, was caught on camera helping a black homeless woman named Grace. Beneath the rattling overpass, her clothes soaked, her eyes dark and desperate, Grace shivered as the cold shredded through her skin. Passers-by stopped, jaws dropping. Matthew, usually surrounded by bodyguards and press, stepped out of his sleek black car, his expensive coat thrown over his arm. His face was tight, his jaw clenched, not with annoyance like you'd expect from a man of power, but with a flicker of something raw, something real. He knelt beside Grace, the rain pelting the two like, instead of brushing her off or ordering security to handle it, he opened the door to his mansion, a fortress of wealth sitting miles above the noise, and invited her in. The news cameras caught it all. The whispers began instantly. The elite were stunned. Donald Trump, watching in disbelief, reportedly called the move a total stunt, while New Yorkers buzzed with questions. Who is Grace? Why did Matthew risk his carefully sculpted image? And what happened inside those walls after the world looked away? But this wasn't just some act of goodwill. No, the air inside that mansion was thick with tension, secrets, and something about to explode. Matthew's generosity was about to crack open the shiny surface of the city's elite, peeling back layers nobody wanted anyone to see. Because lurking in the shadows was Richard Collins, a ruthless fixer with a grudge. He smelled weakness and planned to strike. If he could drag Grace's past into the light, it could bring Matthew down faster than any scandal before. Grace, who seemed fragile and beaten, held a secret fierce enough to shake them both. The question was, would she speak the truth? And what price would they pay if she did? Outside, the storm finally began to ease. But inside that mansion, the tension tangled tighter. Every glance between Matthew and Grace crackled like electricity. Every silence screamed louder than the thunder outside. Alliances would shift, loyalties would be tested. The city might never be the same again. Who will survive the storm coming next? The storm within! Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And since you're here, drop a powerful like that really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Matthew stood just inside his mansion, the heavy door creaking shut behind him, cutting off the noise of the storm. The elegance of the foyer felt stark against the turmoil outside, the expensive decor whispering of a wealth that felt heavy right now. Lightning flickered through the tall windows, casting shadows that danced and twisted around him and Grace. He glanced at her, trying to see beyond the wet clothes and desperate eyes. What secrets lay behind the surface? But he didn't have long to ponder. A sharp knock echoed through the entryway, a sound that jolted both of them. Matthew exchanged a quick look with Grace, her bro. With each step, the air thickened, every breath filled with uncertainty. The knock came again, insistent and loud. "Who is it?" he called, his voice sharper than he intended. "Open up! It's important!" A voice thundered from outside, familiar yet laced with menace. Richard Collins. Matthew's heart thudded. He had hoped to keep his past, and Richard, outside the polished walls of his home. The door rattled again. "Matthew, don't make me break this door down!" With a deep breath, he swung the door wide open. Richard stood there, drenched from the rain, eyes wild and burning fierce. The moment hung, heavy and charged, before collapsing in a rush as Richard shoved inside, practically shoving Matthew back. "What the hell, Richard?" Matthew started, but Richard cut him off, locking eyes with Grace. "You shouldn't be here. None of this is what you think." Grace froze, confusion darting across her features. "What do you mean?" Matthew stepped protectively in front of her. "You need to leave. This doesn't concern you." Richard's gaze flared with something darker. "Oh, but it does. Grace is not who you think she is, Matthew. You have no idea what you're getting into." The weight of Richard's words dropped like a stone in the room. Silence fell heavy, punctuated only by the rain battering the windows. Grace's breath quickened, each exhale an unfolding tension. "What are you saying?" Richard chuckled, but it held no mirth. "You really think she's just some homeless woman? She's the key to something much bigger." Matthew shot Richard a glare. Anger boiling up. "Stop it! You don't get to—" "Matthew!" Richard interrupted, his tone now deadly serious. "She's involved in a network, a whole operation you've been blind to. They've got eyes everywhere." The words cut through the air like glass. Grace looked at Matthew, fear washing over her face. "What is he talking about?" Matthew felt the walls close in. No, he must be lying. This is some game. But Richard shook his head, stepping closer, leaning in. "You think the media won't find out? She's connected. And if you keep her here, it'll all blow up in your face. You'll ruin everything!" Matthew felt his heart race, pulse pounding in his ears. "Grace, is this true?" The question hung, heavy and loaded, as he searched her face for answers. Desperation creased her brow, and fear flickered in her eyes. I'm just trying to survive," she whispered, pain spilling through her words. Then it hit him, like a lightning bolt. The weight of Richard's words twisted in his gut. If there was truth in them, everything he thought he knew was about to come crashing down. The storm outside was nothing compared to the chaos about to erupt within these walls. What would happen if Grace's past unfolded? If Richard's words were more than just threats? The tension crackled around them, and Matthew knew one thing. The storm that raged outside would have nothing on the storm brewing inside. What secrets lay waiting to be revealed? And could any of them survive the truth? Inside the mansion, It felt as if the storm had followed them in. The heavy wooden doors clicked shut. Rain drummed against the windows, a heartbeat echoingly oppressive silence. Matthew faced Grace, eyes searching for something. Answers, hope, redemption. She stood drenched and trembling, water pooling around her feet, like the weight of the world. "Can you take off your coat?" she whispered, not wanting to overwhelm him with her presence. He hesitated, but then shrugged it off, revealing a tailored shirt. A flicker of vulnerability crossed his face, but it vanished quickly. He turned to find a towel, and in that brief moment, Grace's heart raced. This man, a titan of industry, was not just a figure painted by wealth. He was here, at her side, exposed in this moment. Suddenly, a loud bang reverberated through the mansion. The sound was as sharp as a gunshot. The lights flickered, casting shadows that danced wildly across the walls. From the corner of the room, a figure emerged. The door behind them burst open. It was Richard Collins, a grimace etched across his face, followed by two towering bodyguards. "Matthew!" he bellowed, his voice like gravel. "You've crossed a line. This isn't charity. It's weakness." The tension in the air snapped tight. Matthew's face hardened, his earlier warmth evaporating. The moment thickened as Richard thrust a document into Matthew's hands. "This is her file," he declared, a smirk creeping onto his lips. "Grace Williams. She's not just some street girl. She's a criminal, wanted in 3 states for theft. And you thought saving her would make you a hero?" Grace's heart sank like a stone. She wanted to deny it, to scream that it wasn't true. But doubt seeped in like the rain outside. She took a step back, clenching her fists. "No, that can't be right. But before she could defend herself, Richard continued. "And her past? It'll ruin you, Matthew. You think lending her a coat makes you a savior? It makes you a fool." Every word hit like a whip. Matthew's jaw tightened. "Get out," he shouted, eyes ablaze. The power had shifted. Now it was a battle of wills, the puppy dog look gone, leaving only the remnants of a man at war with his choices. Richard's laughter echoed, cruel and cold, cutting through the thick atmosphere. "You'll rue this day, Reynolds. She'll betray you. They always do." With that, he signaled his men, and just like that, they were gone, leaving a cloud of tension behind. Grace was shaking now, fear weaving through her like poison. "Matthew, I didn't steal anything. I swear." Tears pooled in her eyes. "I just wanted a chance." What had she gotten herself into? The room felt smaller, her breath quickening. Matthew stared at her, his expression unreadable. So many colors of emotion flashed across his face. Anger, confusion, pity. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Outside, the winds roared, and the dark clouds seemed more oppressive. Inside, the storm had shifted, swirling with unspoken truths. Trust hung by a thread. "Matthew, please, I need you to believe me," she said, her voice a fragile whisper. But would he? The weight of Richard's words loomed, casting shadows on any flicker of hope. Could she unravel the truth before it consumed them both? Would Matthew's moment of kindness rip apart his carefully crafted world? The stakes were higher than either of them ever anticipated, and as the rain began to fall again, it felt more like a countdown than a cleansing. What would come next? The world had just tipped, and they hadn't even begun to see the fall. Matthew stood, a wall between Grace and the suffocating mess unfolding around them. The air felt electric, thick with unspoken fears and doubts. He searched her face for answers, but the storm in her eyes matched the chaos outside. "Please, I need you to believe me," she whispered, desperation clinging to every word. Just as he opened his mouth, ready to reply, a heavy crash echoed from the back of the mansion. The sound sliced through the tension like a knife, freezing them both in shock. The windows rattled, and for a moment, all they could hear was the relentless rain pounding against the glass. Then a figure bolted into the entryway, wild and unfocused. It was Carla, Matthew's assistant. Usually composed and calculated, now, shh! She held a phone, shaking, each word spilling out in a frantic rush. "Matthew, you need to see this! It's happening!" He turned, confusion tightening his gut. "What are you talking about?" "Your company! There's a live stream! They're showing everything!" The color drained from Matthew's face. "What do you mean? What are they showing?" But before she could answer, her phone buzzed loudly. A clip played, filling the spacious foyer. Images filled the screen. A mob of reporters huddled together outside, shoving their microphones through the gates of his mansion. A banner flashed across the bottom of the screen. "Billionaire saves homeless criminal? Matthew Reynolds' shocking secrets uncovered." The room felt like it was closing in. Matthew's heart raced, the world outside rushing in like a tidal wave. The news anchor's voice droned on, recounting his daytime act of kindness. Grace Williams, whom Reynolds took in during the storm, is wanted for suspected robbery in 3 states. Is this a simple lapse in judgment or an elaborate ploy? Matthew's throat tightened. He turned to Grace. The shock mirrored hers. I didn't know, he stammered, panic bubbling to the surface. The door burst open, again, rapid like a gunshot. Richard strode in, an insidious grin spreading across his face. Well, well, what a scene! The Steve Jobs of charity caught in a scandal! Tell me, Matthew, how does it feel to be the city's hero 1 minute and a fool the next? Get out! Matthew shouted, but the rage inside could not drown out the shock of betrayal. Richard had known, and he'd let it play out just like that. Grace looked back, confusion flickering like a flame. Do you believe this? What's happening? That's what I want to know, Richard smirked, his eyes wheeling between them like a predator. Do you trust her, Matthew? Look at the evidence piling against you. Grace seemed to shrink back, her breath hitching. I didn't know, I swear. Tears glimmered in her eyes, and they burned through Matthew. He felt the fire of betrayal, mixed painfully with the warmth rising from her. Then the unexpected happened. A loud crash resonated outside, louder than the rain, followed by what sounded like a crowd erupting in panic. The power flickered again, and suddenly a voice boomed. Matthew Reynolds! Come out with your hands up! The revelation hit like a lightning strike. The police? Here for Grace? But it wasn't just her they wanted. It was him, too. The walls felt like they were closing in. Matthew's mind raced. How had it come to this? He turned slowly to look at Grace, dread pooling in his stomach. Were you set up?" he choked out. But before she could answer, chaos erupted. The lights went out, plunging them into darkness, followed by shouts and frantic movements from outside. Faces turned wide with fear, hearts pounding like thunder. Everything had shifted. Trust unraveled in seconds, turning a sanctuary into a prison. And the question lingered in the air, heavy and suffocating. Who was Grace really? And who truly needed saving here? The air inside the mansion buzzed and crackled with tension, each heartbeat echoing like a drum in the heavy silence. Matthew and Grace exchanged wary glances, the thunder outside fading into a murmur, eclipsed by the gravity of the moment. What had started as an act of kindness felt like an unraveling thread, each question unspooling faster than they could weave it back. Matthew's mansion had become a stage, and they were the reluctant actors in a play neither had signed up for. "Let me get you some dry clothes," Matthew said. The rough edges of his familiar voice softened by urgency. He stepped away, moving quickly toward the grand staircase, leaving Grace with her thoughts. But the storm of doubt rose, swirling around her, and for a split second, she felt the walls closing in. As Matthew rummaged through his wardrobe, an unsettling crack echoed from the front door, followed by laughter. The laughter pierced the cold atmosphere, slicing through. Richard's voice boomed, dripping with mockery. "I see you've met our city's finest." Each word dripped like poison. Matthew froze, heart hammering. "What are you doing here, Richard?" he shot back, trying to control the rising tide of panic. "Oh, I just happened to be passing by," Richard replied nonchalantly, his gaze zeroing in on Grace, who stood there trembling, forgotten by everyone but the storm. "Looks like you've been playing the hero." He stepped closer to Grace, eyes glistening with a hunger that made her skin crawl. Out in the rain, all alone. "What do you want?" Grace asked, her voice barely a whisper, but it trembled with undeniable strength. She wasn't going to let him scare her. "Just having a little chat about last week's mishap," Richard said, and his grin widened. "Isn't that right, Grace?" Matthew's stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" he demanded, stepping protectively in front of Grace. Richard chuckled, a sound too dark to be anything but sinister. "Oh, did you not know? Grace here has a past with someone who could bury you whole if he wanted to." The words sliced through the silence, leaving jagged edges. Matthew turned back to Grace, searching her face, and in that moment his heart sank deeper. What is he talking about? Grace's eyes darted around the room, fear stitching her features. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. It was like watching a storm cloud gather just before it bursts, thick with tension, holding something powerful yet destructive. "Come now, don't be shy," Richard taunted. "You were once part of something much bigger, weren't you? Something that could ruin this shiny empire." Suddenly, the weight of Richard's words sank in. Matthew stepped closer, eyes locked on Grace, desperate for answers. "Grace, please," before she could answer. A thunderous crash echoed from the kitchen, a window blown wide open by the wind, glass shimmering as it shattered across the tiled floor. A wild flurry of rainwater surged in, mixing with chaos, drowning the air with confusion. Richard smirked, eyes sparkling with delight. Looks like a storm is brewing. Not just outside, but inside your walls. Enough games! Matthew shouted, fists clenched as adrenaline surged through him. But there was something unsettling in Richard's smile, something twisted and victorious. And just like that, everything was spinning. Alliances were shifting. Grace stood in the eye of the storm, a dark secret brewing beneath the surface, while the mansion, temporarily a sanctuary, transformed into a battleground. The stakes soared higher, and the truth huddled like a caged beast, ready to burst free. "Are you ready for the truth, Grace?" Richard asked, and the room held its breath. Nothing would ever be the same again. The storm outside waned, but the real tempest was just beginning to rise. Inside the mansion, the air was heavy. Raindrops still hammered against the windows, a constant reminder of the storm outside. Matthew and Grace stood in the grand foyer, a world apart from the chaos that raged just beyond the walls. Matthew felt a flutter of nervous energy. He wasn't used to this closeness, this vulnerability. "What do you need?" he asked, his voice low, almost a whisper. But Grace didn't answer. Her eyes wandered, caught in her thoughts, as if she were searching for something buried deep inside. He reached out, touching her shoulder gently. "I can help you. Just tell me what you need." But still, she hesitated. Outside, the distant rumble of thunder faded into a weak growl, but that tension inside was amplifying. Then it happened. A sharp crash at the door jolted them both. Matthew's heart raced. "Stay here!" He darted toward the entrance. Just as he reached for the doorknob, it burst open. Richard Collins stormed in, fury painting his face. Matthew froze, the last person he expected to see. "Matthew," Richard spat, his words laced with venom. "You think you can play the hero? This is a game you can't win." "Get out!" Matthew snapped, the authority in his tone slicing through the tension. "Or what?" Richard stepped closer, eyes glinting with malice. "You'll invite your little pet into your world of glitter and glamour?" He turned to Grace, the disdain pouring from him like bile. "What's the story? Huh? You think he cares? He's just using you to polish his image." Grace flinched, hurt written across her face. "No!" Matthew interjected, his voice rising. "I'm giving her a chance." But Richard laughed, harsh and mocking. "A chance? What's she told you? That she's just some homeless nobody? That's where you're wrong! Oh, shut up!" Matthew shot back, rage boiling inside him. Richard smirked. "You don't even know, do you? She's not who you think she is." And in that moment, like a punch to the gut, Grace's face transformed. No longer the timid figure, she straightened, power rising from her core. "Stop it! Just stop!" "It's too late," Richard replied, taking a step back, his expression smug. "You want the truth? She's not just homeless, she's connected, ties deep in the very world you're trying to push her away from." Matthew felt a chill run down his spine. "What are you talking about?" Grace inhaled sharply, tears glistening. "It's true. I have a past, one I tried so hard to escape." Her voice trembled, but a fire burned in her eyes now. "But I'm done hiding." "What does that mean?" Matthew asked, his mind racing, grappling for the truth in a tide of uncertainty. Matthew? She paused, glancing at Richard, hesitating as if holding back a flood. I didn't choose to be on the streets. I was forced out of a world that I no longer wanted. The weight of her words hung heavy in the air as Richard leaned in closer. And now you're standing here, brushing off your past like it's nothing? Think about what people will say. Think about this perfect image of yours. Matthew felt his pulse quicken. The perfect image he fought so hard to maintain was crumbling. Is it true? He finally asked, his voice cracking. Outside, a bolt of lightning illuminated Grace's face, and in that flicker, he saw the truth in her eyes. But what lay ahead now felt like an uncharted storm, one Matthew had never prepared himself for. Would the past pull her back? Would it ruin everything he had built? The crackle of tension spiked. The room felt alive, vibrating with secrets. He stood in the eye of chaos as everything he believed spun like leaves in a tempest. What would happen next? Would the truth bind them or tear them apart? Outside, the first rays of sun pierced through the clouds, but inside, darkness lingered, thick and suffocating, ready to unleash its fury. Inside the mansion, the silence was deafening. Matthew's breathing was heavy, a contrast to Grace's trembling whispers. She stared at the opulent surroundings, disbelief painted across her face. Unsure how she got here, an icy storm outside, warmth embraced her in a world so foreign. Matthew's eyes flickered with uncertainty. He had played savior for a moment, but now the weight of choices loomed large. They stood together in the grand foyer, surrounded by glimmering chandeliers and polished marble. But with each passing second, the air felt thicker, suffocating. Suddenly, the echo of rapid footsteps sliced through the uneasy quiet. A figure burst through the door, shattering the moment. It was Richard, his trademark smirk twisted into something more sinister. He was furious, an animal tracking its prey. "Matthew, what in the hell have you done?" he barked. His voice dripping with disdain. "Let's talk inside," Matthew said, trying to maintain his composure. But Richard wasn't having it. He stepped closer, eyes narrowing, scanning Grace like she was an object rather than a person. "Who is she, Matthew? Just some random woman you picked up off the street?" Richard's tone dripped with sarcasm, but there was a newfound malice that shot fear down Grace's spine. Matthew clenched his fists. "She's not a random woman. She's a human being who needed help," he replied, voice tight, jaw tense. "Right," Richard sneered, leaning in. "And that's exactly why this is so dangerous." A sinister grin broke across his face. "What if she knows your dirty little secrets?" The blood drained from Grace's face. What secrets? What could Richard possibly know? She took a step back, uncertainty curling around her like a tightening noose. "Stop it, Richard." "Enough," Matthew snapped, but there was a hint of hesitation in his voice. "Come on, don't act so surprised," Richard chuckled darkly. "You think your past won't catch up with you? Especially when slippery fingers like hers start to talk?" With that, the electricity in the room shifted. Everything and everyone seemed to still. The weight of Richard's words hung heavy in the air. Matthew's face fell, confusion dancing in his eyes. Was this a game? Or was Richard serious? Just then, Grace found her voice. "I'm not!" But before she could finish, the oppressive atmosphere ruptured. A loud crash erupted from the back of the mansion, followed by the blaring of an alarm. All heads snapped towards the sound. "What the hell was that?" Richard exclaimed, his bravado fading as he moved toward the noise. Matthew grabbed Grace's arm, urgency in his grip. "We have to go, now!" But before they could react, a tall figure stepped into the light, drenched, disheveled, and furious. It was Grace's brother, Elijah. His presence was thunderous, his gaze fierce. "You think you can just forget about me, Grace? Disappear into this mansion of dreams?" His voice cut like glass, sharp, enraged. Stunned silence engulfed the room. The tension splintered. Two worlds now collided. Grace's heart raced. "Elijah, wait! I can explain!" But he wasn't having it. "No explanation will change the fact that you've been gone too long. This isn't your world, and it never was. You're in over your head." The truth of his words struck like lightning. Suddenly, Grace's secrets felt exposed like scars against her skin. Matthew's grip on her tightened. Every fiber of his being was fierce and protective. But as he looked at Elijah, an unsettling realization dawned. This storm wasn't just outside. It was brewing within, ready to unleash fury upon them all. Would Grace choose to stand with the brother who left her to fend for herself? Or the man who had just pulled her from the brink? Who would she be when the thunder finished its roar? Silence rippled. Echoing questions hung in the air like a thick fog. No one spoke. Everyone held their breath, waiting for the next crack to break wide open. The air felt charged, thick with tension as Elijah glared at Grace. The echo of the shattered glass hung in the room, mixing with the storm's fury outside. No one spoke. Their breaths were shallow, hearts racing with uncertainty. It was as if time paused, ready for a decisive moment. Finally, Grace broke the silence. "Elijah, I'm trying to make things right." Her voice was shaky but resolute. "I didn't mean to disappear from your life." But Elijah shook his head, disbelief hardening his features. "You don't get it, do you? You're tangled up in something dangerous. You can't just step back into a life you don't understand." Matthew stepped closer to Grace, protective instincts roaring to the surface. "She deserves a chance, Elijah. You can't just drag her back." Richard watched, a sly grin still plastered on his face. "Oh, this is rich. The billionaire playing savior to a lost soul." Suddenly, the alarm blared again, a loud, shrieking sound tearing through the air. The commotion outside grew more chaotic. "Matthew, we need to move!" Carla shouted from the back hallway, panic evident in her eyes. "They're coming!" The urgency surged like a current. "Who?" Matthew demanded. "Police! They're outside! They think there's a connection to something bigger!" She was frantic, hair plastered to her forehead, hands trembling as she gestured toward the door. Richard laughed, the sound icy and mocking. "Oh, what a delightful mess you found yourself in, Matthew. All because of her." "That's enough!" Matthew yelled, but the storm outside roared back as if echoing his frustration. Elijah took a step closer to Grace. You know you can't trust them. They'll turn their backs and leave you on your own. No, I won't go back to that. Grace protestó, voice rising. Tears streamed yendo su cara. Each drope, una plega pedirle entendimiento, aceptancia. I won't go back to being powerless. But as she spoke, the reality twisted around them. The tension burned hotter, suffocating. And then, with the suddenness of lightning striking, a loud bang rattled the windows. The door burst open, slamming against the wall. Officer Daniels stood there, his uniform taut and serious. Oh! Behind him, a wave of police officers surged in, faces set, hands resting on their belts. Matthew Reynolds, stand down, Daniels commanded. Grace gasped, stepping back as if the ground had dropped out from under her. This is all a big mistake, Matthew shouted, his heart racing. She's not involved. Officer Daniels raised an eyebrow, determination glinting in his eyes. We have credible information linking Miss Williams and this residence to a major crime syndicate. We need to take her in for questioning. The world spun. Grace's heart raced, her mind scrambling. What? No, it's not true. I swear. Step away from her, Daniels barked, eyeing Elijah and Matthew. Stop! She's my... Matthew started. But before he could finish, the room erupted. Richard shoved forward, his voice cutting through chaos like glass. You see, this is exactly what I warned you about, Matthew. All your precious ties, all your attempts to play the hero, it'll unravel, and she'll take you down with her. Everything snapped into focus in that moment. Light caught an object in Richard's hand. A flash of silver. A weapon? No, a small device, like a recorder. It clicked loudly, announcing, "This is a recording." The world turned cold. "What have you done?" Grace whispered, horror lining her voice. "Just some insurance for my dear friend here," Richard replied, gloating, his voice smooth and dangerous. "You should have thought twice before associating with the likes of her. Your reputation? It's in my hands now. Her dirty secrets could destroy you both." The air thickened with dread. Relationships shifted. Trust shattered. Grace was no longer the vulnerable woman seeking help. She became a weight that could sink them all. Tension crackled, eyes darting around the room. "Let's see how he protects you when the truth comes out," Richard said with a sinister grin. The storm outside resumed its fury. A furious display, matching the chaos within. The room pulsed with questions. Who was Grace really? And what would happen when the truth finally erupted? As Matthew stood with Grace at his side, a chill ran down his spine. The game had changed, and now nothing was safe. The storm gathering outside had nothing on this whirlwind of secrets, about to be unleashed. What would come next? The storm outside roared louder, a beast unleashed. Inside the mansion, the tension was electric, thick like fog. Matthew's heart hammered against his ribcage. Richard's triumphant smirk sent chills down Grace's spine. "This isn't just about you, Matthew. This is a chess game, and you've played your piece all wrong," Richard taunted. But before Matthew could react, a loud bang echoed through the house, shaking the walls. The lights flickered again. plunging them briefly into darkness. Then a rush of footsteps thundered down the hallway, and before anyone could process what was happening, a woman flew into the room, breathless and wild-eyed. It was Angela, Matthew's longtime executive assistant. "They're coming for you!" she shouted, panic lining her voice. "We have to go, now!" Matthew's instincts kicked in. "Angela, what are you talking about?" he demanded. But the urgency in her voice cut through the heat of the moment. "You're past, Matthew! They've got evidence! They're not just after Grace, they're after you!" Richard's laughter filled the room, mocking and cold. "Now we're getting somewhere!" He stepped closer, eyes gleaming with mischief, as if he just won the lottery. "You think playing the hero will save you? They've unraveled everything! The ties, the connections, it's all out there!" "Shut up!" Matthew snapped, but doubt crept in. What did Richard know? He felt the walls closing in. Panic surged through him. "What do you mean, my past?" Suddenly, Grace stepped forward, her voice shaking like a leaf in the wind. "Matthew, what's going on? What are they accusing you of?" "I don't know!" he exclaimed, fear twisting his gut. But before he could explain, the door behind them swung open again, and two uniformed officers rushed in, looks of determination etched into their faces. "We're here for Matthew Reynolds." "Step away from the woman!" "Wait!" Matthew started, but the officers flanked him, hands ready at their belts. Grace's heart raced. The room felt like it was spinning. "Matthew!" she cried, the fear coating her voice. "What's happening?" "Let him go!" Elijah demanded, stepping protectively in front of his sister. But the officers remained firm. "Sir, you need to step back," one of the officers repeated, casting a cautious glance at Richard. "This is a police matter." Richard flashed a grin, relishing the chaos. "You see? This is what I came to tell you, Matthew. The truth's about to bury you." The alarm in Grace's chest flared again. "What truth?" Before Richard could respond, Angela clutched the edge of the desk, her voice trembling. "It's not just about the robbery, Matthew. They found the footage of you." The words hung in the air like smoke, thick and suffocating. Matthew's stomach dropped. "What footage?" "Footage of you and the deal you made under the table years ago." Angela's voice trembled. "Your secrets are out, Matthew. They know everything." Matthew's world splintered. The storm outside raged, matching the chaos inside. A heavy silence fell over the room. Grace's gaze darted between Matthew and Richard, shock creeping into her features. Richard leaned closer to Grace, his voice a conspiratorial whisper. "Didn't you know? Matthew isn't just some tech billionaire. He's been involved with some heavy hitters. There's blood on those hands." Matthew's breath hitched. "No, that's not true." But deep down, a dark shadow loomed, and the truth was unraveling faster than he could catch it. As the weight of Richard's words sunk in, a terrifying realization hit him. Was everything he built hanging by a thread? Then, without warning, a fire alarm blasted, filling the room with shrill urgency. "Get out now!" Angela yelled, pushing Grace toward the door. But just as they turned to flee, a sharp sound echoed. A gunshot! "Down!" Matthew yelled, instincts kicking in as he tackled Grace to the floor. The room erupted into chaos. Who had fired? Who was aiming? Then a different voice came through the haze, cold and calculated. You've made a grave mistake, Matthew. As the smoke crept in, enveloping them all, Matthew froze, a shivering realization twisting his gut. Everything had just changed, and not for the better. The stakes were higher than he had ever imagined, and he was trapped in the eye of a new storm. The world around them was chaos. The officers stood at the ready, eyes darting between Matthew, Grace, and Richard. The revelation of secrets had shaken them all to the core. The air thickened with unease, hearts racing. "Enough!" Matthew shouted, breaking the tension like glass. "I won't let you tear her down!" With a swift motion, he stepped in front of Grace, blocking her from Richard's smug gaze. His body trembled with anger and the adrenaline coursing through his veins. Grace felt his defense, but doubt washed over her. The weight of the situation clawed at her throat. "Matthew, please, we have to get out," she managed to whisper, terror pooling in her eyes. Suddenly, Richard laughed, a dark, chilling sound. "Run? There's nowhere to go. They've got the place surrounded." He gestured lazily at the chaos outside, its sirens growing louder. A terrible orchestra marking their downfall. The police officers moved forward. "Step away from the woman, Reynolds," one of them commanded. "Wait, please," Grace cried, her voice shaking. "This is all a misunderstanding." "Enough!" Officer Daniels insisted, stepping closer, brow furrowed. "We have credible information. You can't deny it any longer." As they moved to apprehend Matthew, the room became a whirlpool of motion. Flashes of blue lights danced through the windows. It felt surreal, like a nightmare tearing at the seams. Then, out of nowhere, Elijah erupted. "Get your hands off her!" He pushed through, standing firm against the officers, breaths heavy with resolve and fury. "Don't involve yourself, Elijah," Matthew shouted, desperate to keep his brother away from the onslaught. "Too late for that," Elijah retorted, fire in his eyes. "You're both in deep trouble." Richard basked in the chaos, savoring every second. "See, Matthew? You failed. Look at your life. Look at the mess. I warned you." But in that moment, Grace found her voice. "No, I won't be your pawn anymore!" She stepped forward, determination sparking within her. "I'm not going back to that life." The noise outside intensified, reverberating through the walls. Flames of urgency engulfed them. Matthew's heart pounded as he looked at Grace, seeing her transform from a victim to a fighter. Everything shifted. The officers hesitated, unsure of the storm brewing before them. "You can't do this," Matthew pleaded with them, desperation rising. "She's innocent!" But just then, a figure broke through the doorway. It was Carla, breathless and frantic. "I have evidence!" Footage that shows Matthews not connected to anything, just like Grace. Shock rippled through the room, but tension twisted and spiraled, and the officers paused, caught between orders and the unexpected announcement. "Show it!" Officer Daniels demanded, stepping back as doubts flickered in his eyes. "Right here," Carla gasped. Pulling out her phone, she pressed play, and the gathered crowd fell silent. The small screen showed footage of Grace during a moment of survival, not as a criminal, but as someone trying desperately to escape their past. The weight shifted dramatically. A murmur rippled through the officers. Understanding softened their hardened expressions. In that fragile silence, Grace took a step forward. "I'm not the person Richard wants you to believe I am. I am trying to change. I deserve that chance." "Maybe you do," one officer replied, his gaze steady as he regarded the screen. "But there's still a process." And just like that, the tide began to turn. As the storm outside abated, each character felt the weight lighten just enough to take a breath. But uncertainty lingered. A fragile peace settled as the truth hung in the air. A quiet promise of what could be. Eventually, Matthew turned to Grace, needing no words to communicate everything they had just endured. Understanding flashed between them, a bond forged in fire. And yet, the lingering question remained. Would trust return? Could they rebuild everything that had crumbled? A glimmer of hope flickered in Grace's heart, but the past still loomed. As the officers retreated, leaving them in a holding space of potential and uncertainty, the crowd began to disperse. But the reality was clear. Danger never truly recedes. It merely hides, waiting to resurface. In the silence, as the storm clouds dispersed, there was one last scene, the fleeting glimpse of redemption, tangled with shadows of doubt. And this is where it ends. Or does it? Before you go, listen closely. You have to subscribe now. Don't miss a moment of the upcoming exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. What do you think is next for Grace and Matthew? And don't wait even a second longer to share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this ending. Your support makes all the difference.